Well, good morning, everyone. It's 10 o'clock. Welcome to today's Cabinet on the 7th of September. I'm Councillor Spencer Flower. I'm Leader of Council and I should be chairing this meeting this morning. Dorset Council continues to operate virtual informal meetings. This decision was made in the light of the increasing COVID case rates and projected increases for August into September, and we'll review this situation in the middle of this year. As Executive Leader, I decided that Cabinet meetings will also be held as virtual informal meetings during this time. For today's meeting, when a decision is required, the appropriate portfolio holder will make the decision, taking into account the views expressed by the wider Cabinet membership. I'll do a quick roll call. Peter Wharf, Vice Chairman, Ray Bryan, Graham Carr-Jones, Tony Ferrari, Jill Haynes, Laura Miller, Andrew Parry, Gary Sutton and David Walsh at the Cabinet, and senior officers with us today, Matt Prosser, Chief Exec, Aidan Dunn, John Selgren, Teresa Levy, Steve Evers, Jonathan Mayer, David McIntosh, and we have Kate Critchell, Senior Democratic Services Officer, and the producers today, Judy Saunders and Hayley Caves. And we will obviously have with us today some of the authors of the report, should we need to call on their services. So first item, Kate, is apologies. I believe there aren't any.
That's correct, Chairman. No apologies today.
Declarations of interest. Colleagues, anyone got an interest that we need to declare? I'll take silence as no. Public participation, we've got 4 questions today, and I shall ask Matt Prosser or Jonathan Mayer to take it in turns to read the questions. And the first question this morning is from Giles Watts, and I'll ask Matt Prosser to read the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So a question from Giles Watts on behalf of Dorset Climate Action Network, Dorset CAN. Consultation for the draft local plan closed on the 15th of March. At the Cabinet meeting on the 18th of May, we asked when the submission and feedback from the consultation would be made publicly available. The portfolio holder for planning, David Walsh, responded that it is likely that they will all be published in July. As of the 1st of September, this has not yet happened. Can Councillor Walsh please update us on when the consultation documents will now be published, and given the further delays, his new timescale for revising, submitting and examining Dorset's local plan? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt. Can I ask David Walsh to respond, please?
Thank you, Leader. I'm Councillor David Walsh, portfolio holder for planning. Thank you for the question. Officers have been working hard to process the consultation responses. However, given the high response rate, it is taking longer than expected. We anticipate publishing the consultation responses before the end of September. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, David. The next question is from Mike Allen. I invite Jonathan Mayer to read the question out, please.
Thank you, Leader. In July, I asked the Cabinet whom they expected to buy the nearly 10,000 extra dwellings planned in the draft local plan. Extra, that is, over the Ministry of Housing's projected household growth in Dorset due to population, migration and household size changes. The Cabinet reply was that the extra housing enables for the formation of households from those who already live in Dorset where a suitable property is not available, and for those who need or wish to move to Dorset and where a suitable property is not available. I want to probe a little deeper, please. The answer says that the extra housing will be more suitable for the so-called hidden households and for extra incomers from other areas. One can only assume that suitable here means affordable. So the plan is for nearly 10,000 extra, more affordable dwellings to be built, generating extra demand as a result of their lower prices, presumably. Remembering that current population trends projected by the Ministry and the independent ONS do not project these households to form, there must be something in the Council's planning that is going to cause these extra dwellings to be more affordable than expected. Either wages are planned to rise faster than house prices, or house prices are planned to fall relative to wages, or both. Marginally, house prices rise when incomes rise, so one must assume that house prices are planned by the Council to fall relative to wages due to some undeclared mechanism. The The plan must surely quantify the actual fall in prices expected to be necessary. Since building costs and margins cannot be expected to fall, those price falls must be found in reduced land values. Land values must be planned to fall enough to bring 10,000 new households into the housing market. So it is this economic mechanism that I want to ask about. Please can the Cabinet explain how they expect house price falls to occur that will enable 10,000 extra households to form in Dorset over the plan period 2021 to 38.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. I'll invite David Walsh to respond, please.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Mr. Allen, for your question. An increase in supply of suitable homes will enable the formation of new households. Suitable homes are homes that meet the need of a resident, whether this be in terms of size, type or tenure, and does not purely relate to cost. A proportion of the new homes being provided will meet the planning definition of affordable housing. The provision of a range of homes of different sizes, types and tenures will also enable existing residents to move to homes that are more closely meet their needs, thereby freeing up existing dwelling stock for others. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, David. Now, the next question is from Julie Lee, and invite Matt Prosser to read the question out, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So, as the Environment Bill will have long-term implications for Dorset, please could the Council explain what they are doing to ensure that the Environment Bill is rigorous enough to serve Dorset well, and how its implementation will affect the Climate and Ecological Emergency Strategy and Dorset Local Plan?
Thank you very much, Matt. I believe that Jill Haynes will respond to this question. Jill?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I'm Jill Haynes. I have the portfolio for Customer and Community Services. Thank you very much for the question. Dorset Council have been working closely with partners, including Natural England and the Dorset Local Nature Partnership, to put ourselves on the front foot when the Environmental Bill is enacted. Among other actions, work has been undertaken to develop a local nature recovery strategy and to integrate the requirement for the minimum 10% biodiversity net gain into local plan policies. From an air quality perspective, the Council has watched the development of the bill and supported comment through the consultation. There has been concern about the range of pollutants proposed to be included and how new provisions will be resourced. The detail of specific pollutant limits is awaited, particularly in relation to small particulates. The Council will shortly start consultation on a local air quality action plan, and detail resulting from the Act will be incorporated. The Government published the Resources and Waste Strategy in December 2018. Through the Environment Bill, DEFRA are seeking powers which would allow them to make regulations to implement each of the following three reforms: the extended producer responsibility for packaging in the UK, a deposit return scheme for drinks containers in England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and consistency of materials collected for recycling for households and businesses in England. These have recently been consulted on by the Government, and Dorset Council provided a full and comprehensive response to each of these consultations. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Jill. And the fourth and last public question today is from Andrew Carey, and Matt Prosser is going to read. Oh, sorry, Jonathan's going to read it. Beg your pardon.
Thank you, Leader. Question from Andrew Carey. Councillor Bryan has publicly stated his intention to make Dorset the greenest county in England. The UK 100 pledge says we will bring our council emissions to net zero by 2030, and we will work with our residents and businesses to bring our wider community emissions in line with net zero as soon as possible and by 2045 at the latest. Dorset Council's targets dates of 2040 and 2050 fall well short of this pledge. Wiltshire Council, Somerset County Council and Cornwall Council are among 13 county councils that that have already signed the UK 100 pledge, as well as many district, town and city councils. Dorset Council has not. Dorset is therefore not even among the 13 greenest counties in England. Given the urgent call for action in the IPCC's latest climate change report, will Dorset Council now support Councillor Bryan's aspiration and sign the UK 100 pledge?
Thank you very much, Jonathan. I'll invite Councillor Ray Bryan to respond, please.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Andrew Carey, for the question. My name is Councillor Ray Bryan. I'm the portfolio holder for Highways, Travel and the Environment. Following an in-depth review of the options available to Dorset Council to transition to carbon neutrality, the implications for the Council, a lengthy public consultation and approval by the Council, the Climate and Ecological Strategy and Action Plans set a target date for Dorset Council to become carbon neutral by, somewhere in the region of 2040. The strategy sets out a budget for the reduction of carbon emissions by the Council, with key milestones being by 2025, we will have a 40% reduction. By 2030, the planned reduction is 71%. By 2035, 90%, and by 2040, 100%. Dorset Council believes the target it has set is both achievable and realistic, and has made significant progress following a grant from central government of 19 million to reduce carbon emissions from its built estate. The decarbonisation of power tools used in frontline operations, as well as the installation of additional electric charging points, a replacement programme for some of its vehicle fleet, and low carbon road repair methods. As a result of the target that Dorset Council has set, it is unable to sign the UK 100 pledge, which commits to carbon neutrality by 2030. However, we will aim to have brought about a minimum of 71% reduction in our carbon emissions, and will continue to put the response to climate change at the centre of all the work the Council do. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Ray. And that's the end of the public participation. We've now move on to questions from our members, and there's one question today from Councillor Claire Sutton. I'll invite Claire to read her question, please.
Thank you very much, Spencer. As you know, I submitted this question last week and received a comprehensive outline of how the review of Dorset Council's governance would proceed the following day, which you sent to all group leaders. And I've spoken to you about this. And although I'm really pleased with progress to date, I think it's right to ask this question publicly, as many residents in my ward and no doubt beyond are keen to learn more. But I'll only read out the pertinent parts. I may though wish to ask a supplementary. So can the leader, Spencer, can you please confirm how large the councillor working group will be and how it will demonstrate political balance, when its membership in terms of reference will be decided, whether the terms of reference will include consideration of a non-cabinet cross-party model, and in order to meet the stated timeline, when will the working group report and when will options be put to full council? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question, Claire. And there are really sort of four parts to the question, and I'll pick them up as I go, if I may. The government's review executive advisory panel will be made up of 11 members, this being the minimum number required to achieve political balance. I've written to group leaders seeking nominations and received 2 of the 3 to date. The terms of reference and the work programme will be discussed and agreed at the first meeting of the Governance Advisory Group. The group will be chaired by the Leader of Council, as governance is included in his portfolio responsibilities. The majority of the members will be non-cabinet, will be cross-party and politically balanced as stated above. The timetable of key milestones leading up to the final decision, in accordance with the resolution agreed at full council on the 15th of July, has been sent to group leaders and will be made available to all members following agreement by the Governance Review EAP. Details have been included as an attachment to my email to group leaders dated the 1st of September, but in answer to the question, a report setting out options will be made to full council in September 23. This will enable the constitution to be redrafted and approved prior to the May 24 elections, should the decision be to move to a committee-based governance model?
Thanks, Spencer. I've got a supplementary as well, if I may. I really welcome these proposals and the fact that you're taking the initiative on this. But I am concerned that the timeline seems very compressed, particularly at the end, and also about the pressure on officers, which we're all aware of. So I wonder if, to address these concerns, could we consider convening the councillor working group sooner than September, and actually let some of the membership of that group, some of the councillors, take on the work of gathering the experiences from other councillors with minimum officer support?
Yeah, thank you very much for your supplementary. I have already thought about this, and I should probably call once I know all the membership, I'll probably call an initial meeting of the task and of the EAP before the end of this year, so we can just talk about things in general and talk about how we can approach the point of getting evidence from other councillors who may have gone to from committee to cabinet to committee, and indeed the other way round. So I think I'm quite happy to take that on board as part of the my response to this piece of work.
Great, thank you, Spencer.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, go on to agenda item 5, which is the forward plan. This is for noting, colleagues, and there have been, as you'll see by looking at it, there's been some movement, some items beginning to fill up the October, November, December meetings. I'm not going to dwell on it this morning. You're all aware of the fact that it's very much an iterative process of continually bringing reports to the public eye, so they are aware of what our programme of work is. So can I just say, can we note the forward plan, please? Noted. Thank you very much.
Noted.
Now we go on to one of the substantive items this morning, agenda item 6, which is additional procurement forward plan report for of expenditure over 500,000, and I'll invite Gary Sutton, please. Gary.
Thank you, Spencer. Good morning. This report gives the Cabinet information relating to upcoming procurement contracts that are additional to those agreed in the forward plan of the 2nd of March last. This is all part of the work that continues to be undertaken on service and transformation plans, and it may be necessary as the year progresses to bring forward similar procurement requirements. Before you today, as part of a requirement to obtain Cabinet approval to those contracts in excess of £500,000, and I refer you to Appendix 1, and on that list, please note that the 5G rollout is wholly funded by the MOD. As the money is paid to us to pay over, it falls under the £500,000 limit. The recommendations are set out on page 1, and I hope that you will be able to agree so that I can then take it as agreed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gary. As you say, it all seems very straightforward. Before I open up the item for debate by the Cabinet, are there any non-executive members wishing to speak on this item? If they wish to, can they put request to speak in the chat bar, please? For that, if I see or hear nothing, I shall move on to the Cabinet debate. So I think it's a fairly straightforward item. So I see nothing. I'm filling the gap for a few minutes. So colleagues on the Cabinet, any comments, please? Or do you have a minded view to support Gary's decision? And I'll get Gary to read the decision out. General consensus?
Happy to support.
Right. Gary, can you therefore, just for the benefit of the minutes and the clarity, can you just read out the 2 parts to your decision-making process?
Thank you, Spencer. So the recommendations, as I set out on page 1, is 1, to begin each of the procurement processes listed in Appendix 1 to this report, and 2, that in each instance, the further step of making any contract award should be delegated to the relevant Cabinet portfolio holder after consultation with the relevant Executive Director. Thank
you very much, Gary. I think that's quite clear, colleagues. So we'll now move on to agenda item 7. The Weymouth Station Gateway project, and again we're caught with the payment over 500,000 limit. I'll invite Bryan to speak to this report, please, Ray.
Thank you, Leader. The Weymouth Station Gateway is a project looking at redesigning the train station forecourt through community and stakeholder consultation so it becomes welcoming, attractive and a contemporary place. I think anybody that's visited the Weymouth Station area in recent years will see that there's essential work that needs to take place to make this a major focal point for Weymouth when visitors visit Weymouth. The recommendation that we're looking at, first of all, can I just point out that in the original report, the council had a shortfall in funding. This has now been overcome and we now have full funding for this project. I'm going to point out the fact that this is absolutely essential for the growth of Weymouth. It's a major focal point, as I've already said, for the visitors when they first arrive, and we need to give the right impression. It also will work very hard at making a very safe place for people to come and visit. There are two recommendations that are going in front of us. One is the fact that Dorset Council will enter into a contract with Hanson, contracting for delivery. And the other is a request that the contract award should be delegated to the Executive Director of Place. That's what I'm putting forward to the council. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Ray. I've picked up two colleagues who wish to speak before I open the debate. First being Bryan Heatley.
Thank you, Spencer. I'm speaking partly on my own behalf because this is adjacent to my ward, but mainly on behalf of Councillor John Orrell, who is can't be here, but is the ward member for the ward that surrounds Weymouth Station, and he's had quite a lot to do with this subject. We feel that we are trying to pursue too many objectives with this proposal. Yes, it'd be nice to make it attractive to visitors. It would be nice to do something about antisocial behaviour in the area, and it's quite nice to provide lots of parking for people. But this site has one unique advantage which nowhere else has got, which it is the site for a transport interchange because it's where the station is. And we feel that that aspect of it has not been adequately prioritised in this proposal. It will serve only 4 bus services out of the 17 or so which serve Weymouth one way or another. I know the site is very constrained in terms of size, but if we took out the car parking from the site, didn't do some of the prettification, moved the car parking for the station to Jubilee sidings, we would have a much bigger site and we could make a real transport interchange. That's crucially important in terms of the climate emergency. We need a major move to public transport, and one of the things that makes public transport attractive is making it easy for people to move from one thing to another and to walk to it and to cycle to it and so on. So we feel that the main objective, the chance to do something about that main objective has been lost with this particular proposal. And we'd urge you not to agree it today and to think again. Thank you.
Thank you, Bryan. Ray, I'll let you come in on that one. I think it's quite a comprehensive comment that Bryan's made.
It is, and I've got Bridget Betts who is going to come in and talk about some of the detail that Bryan has mentioned.
That's fine. Bridget.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Bryan. Yeah, I just wanted to respond on a couple of things. Those comments have been looked at through the project. So there is a project team that John Orrell has sat on, as well as Weymouth Town Council representation there, and those things have been brought to the fore. It's not council land, so that's the first thing to say. So it's Network Rail land, and we've worked with the railway station, Network Rail and all others to look at all eventualities of this site. We've got new cycle paths, we've got new walkways. They want to keep their car park, we can't change that, but to have 4 buses in, they thought that was a good start and could lead to bigger things, to be honest. But you know, all the people around the table at this moment in time saying this is a really good move. By not doing it, I don't know whether this opportunity would come round again in the future. So it has been considered by all the partners, including Network Rail, who own the land, but this is what everybody has agreed on.
Thank you very much. Paul Kimber.
Thank you, Spencer, for the question. Yeah, I want to remind you it's Weymouth and Portland, and why I quite deliberately say this, because it follows along from Bryan's question as well about the interchange. It was an experience that I had. I used to have to go to Manchester for quite a lot of meetings, and there was nothing worse than coming back about 10:30 at night, having to walk to the terminus to get the bus, and suddenly seeing your bus to Portland, quite rightly going off to Portland, and the 10-minute walk could be accentuated. So it's important, Ray, that you said about the growth side, but I also want you to remember for us Portlanders that we may be coming back from meetings from far places and seeing that bus go past us when we are walking down to the terminus at the King statue. Thank you. That's my question.
Thank you, Paul. Ray, do you want to?
I'm going to take the first part, and then I'm going to pass over to Bridget. As people are aware, the next item on the agenda is the BSIP, which is the improvement in public transport. And our aim as part of that, Councillor Kimber, is to make sure that trains link in with buses so the timetables all fit together. So the train coming in from, say, Waterloo, the buses would be there or approaching to pick up the passengers to take them to where they need to go. This is all part of the new programme we're working with on the bus project. I'm now going to pass over to Bridget for her comment.
My understanding is that the number one is stopping at the station in this move. So that was a key link because a lot of people wanted that to happen. So there should be I think there's a bus stop outside being put in.
Okay, I think that might have answered your questions, Paul.
Yeah, I'll just say that we've been trying for this for many years, and thank you. I welcome the, if you like, the positive side, and let's try and get this going. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paul. And David Gray.
Yes, thank you, Spencer. A variation on the theme really for Ray and for Bridget. I have a lot of sympathy with John Orrell and Councillor Healy's view of the interchange, but my question really is, and the investment, Ray in Bridget is most welcome. I think it's been a long time coming. I do understand the complication of trying to develop something that we don't own for the benefit of the public. But my question really is, have we considered future-proofing the project so that if in the future we want more than 4 buses? My worry is looking at the plans that we haven't done that, and I would ask that you have a re-look at, 10 years time when we've spent this £1 million, is it going to be big enough to take another 7 buses or whatever we decide could be put in? Thank you.
Thank you, David. Ray?
Yeah, I think again I'll refer back to the project we're working on BSIP, Councillor Gray, because this is an essential part. That if we get the timing running right, there could be 4 buses stationed there at the same time, but that doesn't mean we couldn't have 40 buses throughout the day. And this is what this is all about. This is about linking up rail, bus, and the rest of public transport, and enabling people to walk there, cycle there. I just see this as a massive improvement on what we've got, but we are governed by the restrictions that are placed on us by Network Rail. And I think, I'm going to say it, I think the team have done an absolutely cracking job on putting this project together. I see some major benefits coming out of it. Bridget, do you want to come in on that at all?
No, thank you for that. And all the right players around the table. So the bus company are on the team, the safety people are on the team. So it's been those future proofing has been looked at and taken into account so that it can be developed in the future. But you know, that's probably 10, 15 years off. So, you know, asking to be kept the same for the future for another 15 years is probably not very fair on the Weymouth community, to be honest.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Spencer.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much, Ray. Right, there are no other people, non-executives, seeking to ask a question. So open to the Cabinet. You've heard what's been said. Any colleagues got any comments to make on this particular item? Or are you, in Ray has eloquently read out the two parts to his recommendation, are you minded to support the report and the recommendation?
Yeah.
Support.
Very much so, Chairman.
So I think on the basis that Ray's read it out, that that's adequate enough for it to be recorded in the minutes as a decision made by the portfolio holder on this item. Right, we move on to agenda item 8, outline bus service improvement plan. It's got an acronym as always, BSIP approval. Ray, over to you.
Thank you, Leader. This is probably one of the most exciting things that I've been able to get involved with in my tenure as a portfolio holder. This has got major impetus from central government. I was given a copy of a letter the Leader received yesterday from Baroness Vere, who I've had conversations with on a one-to-one basis, as organised by Chris Loader. This whole project is all about making public transport work for the community. We have a difficulty in as much as part of our area is rural, part of our area is urban. The urban area is always easier to deal with than the rural area. We are working on plans to make public transport available to all. And this programme is working with the bus companies under an enhanced partnership to make sure that the bus companies are working with us to provide the right services in the right areas to the community as a whole. And I just feel that this project is so essential to a number of areas. One is health and well-being, one is climate change, and the other is making sure that those people who are not lucky enough to have their own transport have the ability to get from A to B with the least possible inconvenience. Leader, I'm happy to take any questions on this, and then I'll come back to the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Ray. I don't see any RTSs in the chat bar on this really quite important topic. I will speak for a few seconds to give anybody a chance to bring a question in. I don't see any, so I'm going to open this up now to the Cabinet for comment, Ray, before I invite you back to put your recommendation forward. Cabinet colleagues, anybody wish to speak on this item? If not, I shall move to Ray. So on that basis, Cabinet, are you minded to support this recommendation?
Certainly support.
Right, Ray, would you therefore, for the benefit of the minutes, read out the two parts of the recommendation, please?
Thank you, Leader. The first recommendation is to agree the scope of the outline bus service improvement plan, known as BSIP, and supports the commitment of resources within existing budgets to take forward work to publish a first version of the BSIP by the end of October 2021. The second part of the recommendation is to delegate the approval of the final version of the BSIP to the relevant portfolio holder in consultation with the Executive Director of Place before it is published. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Ray. And by virtue of the minded support you had just now, we can take it as read that your two recommendations have now been supported. Right, we move on to agenda item 9, Holwell Neighbourhood Plan Review. David Walsh. It's gone. Oh, we'll give it.
Sorry, Chairman. Sorry, Chairman.
Oh, there you are.
Had a blip there.
No
Sorry.
problem.
So thank you, Chairman, for that introduction. The Holwell Neighbourhood Plan was formally made by West Dorset District Council in 2019. And in June 2020, Holwell Parish Council decided to review the made plan. A consultation exercise determined that local residents felt that there was no obvious need to amend the plan significantly, either by changing existing policies or adding new policies. It was considered that any changes should reflect factual updates, such as development which has taken place since the plan was made. Therefore, the plan has been updated, and the main changes are in relation to house building and planning permissions granted since the plan was first drafted. In the examiner's report, which you have read at Appendix B, he concluded that there is no statutory requirement for a referendum in this instance, given the limited nature of the changes proposed to the plan, and he therefore recommended that Dorset Council adopt the plan. Just for a second, if I can add, Chairman, I'd like to quote what he says in his report. He says, "It is evident that a great deal of thought and effort has been devoted to the development and speedy production of the review of the plan, and I congratulate those that were involved. The updated plan should prove a useful tool for future planning and change in the parish of Holwell over the coming years." So I'll now open it up to any questions.
Thank you very much, David. I don't see any RTS in the chat bar at all. It all looks pretty straightforward to me. Cabinet colleagues, therefore I should move to cabinet colleagues, see if there's any points of detail, or can I ask you if you're minded to support? Have you got a minded view to support?
Support.
Therefore, David, I'll ask you to read out the two parts of your recommendation, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, colleagues, for your support. The recommendations are that the Council makes the Holwell Neighbourhood Plan Review 2017 to 2031, as set out in Appendix A, part of the statutory development plan for the Holwell neighbourhood area. Secondly, that the Council offers its congratulations to Holwell Parish Council and members of the Neighbourhood Plan Group in producing a successful neighbourhood plan review. Now, the reasons for the recommendation is to formally make the Neighbourhood Plan Review part of the statutory development plan for the Holwell neighbourhood area. In addition, to recognise the significant amount of work undertaken by Holwell Parish Council and members of the Neighbourhood Plan Group in preparing the plan review, and to congratulate the Council and Group on their success. Thank you once again, Chairman.
Thank you very much, David, for that. We'll now move on to agenda item 10, 2021 annual report of the Pan Dorset Safeguarding Children's Partnership. I'll hand over to Andrew Parry. Andrew.
Thank you, Chairman. This is, of course, our presentation to Cabinet of our annual multi-agency Pan Dorset Safeguarding Report. Keeping children and young people in Dorset safe is of paramount importance and something we dedicate considerable resource to achieving. But I would be remiss of me not to take an opportunity to say how tragic we find every circumstance in which we lose a child or a young person. As in previous years, this will include those who are suddenly taken from us as a result of, for example, a road traffic accident, or which has been highlighted quite strongly in the report by co-sleeping. And I know that this is an area that our comms team, in conjunction with partners, will be taking considerable efforts to communicate and see if we can reduce those numbers further. I also have to acknowledge, of course, with great sadness, where we've seen instances of young people who have resorted to self-harm and indeed in some cases have taken their own lives. But there is welcome recognition in the areas where we've seen considerable progress. And I thank Anthony Douglas for his kind words in recognising this. our strengthening service boards, and our work on a number of partnerships, including Aspire, and of course the Strategic Alliance, which Councillor Wolf chairs himself. The report also, of course, highlights and shines a spotlight on areas where COVID restrictions have played a significant role in the challenge of safeguarding. And we do recognise that, of course, we have seen increases in areas of risk to children as a result of domestic abuse, be that directly or indirectly. And I know that all partners are striving to ensure that greater efforts are taken to reduce levels of domestic abuse and do what we can to support those who, of course, may have been subject to it. Chairman, we are joined by Anthony Douglas today, the report's author. Could I take the opportunity to thank Anthony for chairing the Safeguarding Board? He does this incredibly well for a number of years. I believe this is his final report to us, and we will, of course, be welcoming his successor at future meetings. I'm just looking at the director now, see whether I'm allowed to reveal that name. I believe it is James Vaughan who will be taking over, so we a welcome return to James. But happy to take questions.
Right, thank you very much, Andrew. Did you want Anthony to say anything to speak to his report, or was he content to leave it with yourself in recognition of the work? Anthony.
Thanks very much, Spencer. And thanks for the support of Dorset Council in our work. And as Councillor Parry said, to hand over to the ex-Chief Constable who lives in the area, is totally committed, is also, I think, one of the better examples of transition and business continuity that any of us could wish for. I just wanted to emphasise the enduring importance of multi-agency working, that it's just behind every single successful intervention. And certainly at the moment, after the critical inspection of the police and the concerns about BCP with their inspections, it's really important that the partnership sees improvement as multi-agency, that the Dorset Council, BCP Council, the CCG, who were equally criticised in the BCP SEND inspection, and the police focus on the most vulnerable children and young people. And because their context is changing so much and so fast. So I would emphasise multi-agency working, and also the shift that's been made to place-based safeguarding. That's really important, that in Dorset, the work of safeguarding, multi-agency safeguarding as well, is primarily located in the Strengthening Services Board, so that it's not slightly detached and separate, which means that in the future the Pan-Dorset partnership will have more of a strategic overview. So I'll leave it at that, if I may, Spencer and Councillor Parry, and thank you for all your support during my time.
Thank you very much, Anthony. Teresa, do you want to add anything before I open it up to questions?
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, really just again want to extend my thanks to Anthony. He has led the partnership through some very stormy waters, as he's just described, in terms of challenges across the borders piece around Pan-Dorset, and really supported us in our improvement journey. And I'm really proud of the achievements that the team and the partnership team have made in terms of the Strengthening Services Board. But it's been a real uphill struggle, and we know that through a pandemic, incredibly challenging, and we're still seeing some of those impacts on our children. And as Andrew Parry had started saying, some of those young people with really challenging life outcomes, it's an incredibly difficult time for frontline staff. We've been very proud of how they've worked together, and it's a testament to them. So I wanted to thank Anthony for his leadership in that. It's been incredibly supportive, and also just to acknowledge those frontline staff who have worked through this incredibly difficult time. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Now, I am, before I open up to the Cabinet, I'm aware that Molly Rennie wishes to ask a question. Molly?
Thank you. Really, it's a comment and a reminder, really, and children and young people and their effect of the COVID. Andrew's mentioned domestic abuse, obviously, and this is something we're very much aware of. The rise in figures both during and more so as people come out of the lockdown. Anthony's report really fully supports the actions of partnership working within the multi-agency, and I would like to give my thanks for that. Has really come to the fore within domestic abuse and keeping the children safe as well. Whenever an adult speaks of domestic abuse, it's really easy to sort of listen to that adult who says they didn't see it or they weren't in the room. All children are affected when they live in those households. And I really want to give a little gentle reminder and an advert for our new domestic abuse toolkit, devised really in-house with the support of partners by Children's Services. It's an excellent light touch piece of work for any division of the council who comes in contact with children and young people, and just how to listen out for that word and that voice. Anthony mentioned the work based around conversation-based outcomes. And I'd like to just give a shout out really to any councillor who's here. We're having a presentation at our forum about this new toolkit, and we need to just be sure as many departments as possible actually take on board this training. It's easy, it's not scary, and it's just listening for the words. So thank you for giving me that opportunity, Spencer.
Thank you very much for your contribution, Molly. I'm sure everybody appreciates that. Right, I don't see any other requests to speak in the chat bar, so I'm going to move to the Cabinet. Just so you're aware, there's no decision today. This is a report to be noted, but are there any members of the Cabinet wishing to comment on this really quite important piece of work that's in report that's come before us? Anyone wish to speak? Ray?
Yes, thank you, Leader. I can't do anything but wholeheartedly support the work that is going into this. Probably the most important thing as a councillor we have to do is to make sure that our children are protected in whatever way we have to do. And this report highlights so many good things and so many bad things. It's quite heartbreaking to read some of the things that are going on in there. And Andrew, you and your team are doing a cracking job on this. And I wholeheartedly support any actions that we need to take. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Ray. Laura Miller.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, just really welcoming this report. Just yesterday we had a conference with Des Holmes speaking about safeguarding, about transitional safeguarding in particular, and really recognising from an adult's perspective that kind of light touch, the place-based, all of those things that you've mentioned and covered already. And really how we pick that up in adults safeguarding, because we know that it's a process becoming an adult. I'll let you know when I get there. You know, children and young people don't wake up the day after their birthday and become adults at 18. So really just wanted to welcome from an adult's perspective this report, because we're very keen to kind of make sure that process, and it is a process, not an event, it is managed smoothly for everybody in Dorset. So really welcome this report and echo my thanks to everybody that was involved with it. So thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Laura. I don't see anybody else, any other member of the Cabinet wishing to speak on this item. Can I just say then that can we agree to note the report as set out?
Noted.
Noted. Thank you very much. Now go on to Cabinet member updates, and there's a number of those. Agenda item 11, updates on policy development matters referred to overview committees for consideration. I'm aware there's a couple that we might want to comment on. Andrew, I think you've got some that you've put forward. Andrew Parry. Where are you? Oh, there you are.
Thank you again, Leader. Yes, My grateful thanks to Andrew Kirby and the members of the Health Overview Committee, who last week took the trouble to look at a number of items for children's services, starting with the birth to settled adulthood, the children missing out on education, which I know was debated at some length, and we have some follow-up work to do there between Councillor Kirby and myself, and the development of family hubs. I do appreciate that their engagement in it, and I certainly know that you know they really gave these topics a really good airing, and might I say I'm incredibly grateful to them for their feedback and comments.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Jill, did you mention something, an item that you're putting forward?
Thank you, leader. Sorry, my hand up has disappeared, so I couldn't do that. I was just going to put right to speak in there. So I've got a number of things coming forward with no particular fixed dates, one of which is really important, which is our customer services strategy. That I believe will be this year, but I haven't got a date for that. And I also have park home fees policy going to through a licensing process and overview to the November committee.
Okay, thank you very much, Jill. Just a snapshot of things that are going on. These things move around all the time. Anybody else? I don't think I've got anybody else who's indicated. Okay, let's move on then to agenda item 12, which is the portfolio holders and lead members updates. And thank you very much for all of you who've submitted your update reports. But Ray, I believe that you want to invite Knock Lacey Clark to amplify something that was in your report. Would you like to introduce that, please?
Yes, thank you, Leader, and thank you, members. It's no secret. I made it very clear earlier on in a previous sort of statement that the BSIP is so important to the future of our area, and especially to the climate change agenda. So I'm going to pass over to my lead member, young Knock Lacey Clark. Councillor Knock Lacey Clark, to give you a brief outline of the work we're doing. We do have the team as backup. If anybody's got any questions, I've got the team in the background waiting to answer any questions, but Knock's perfectly capable of answering most of them himself. So over to you, Knock.
Thank you, Ray, and I wouldn't go that far. I think Owen and Sue are much more versed in this than I am. And Spencer, thank you so much for the opportunity to present this to the members. So good morning. I'm really pleased to give you a short update today on the Dorset Council's response to the publication of the National Bus Strategy, or Bus Back Better, and the development of our first Bus Service Improvement Plan, or BSIP. So this is such an important piece of work for the council. It's got a real significant role to play in helping to tackle the climate and ecological emergency by reducing car travel and achieving modal shift in favour of public transport. So this work will also feed into a refreshed and updated local transport plan, which we intend to publish in 2022, including a renewed commitment to reducing carbon emissions from transport. The team have been really hard at work gathering and analysing data and lots of feedback sent in by the public and the stakeholders. I'm now going to take about 5 minutes to give you a flavour of this work and present the themes and priorities that have emerged through the public and stakeholder engagement activities. Hayley, can I have the next slide, please? Fantastic. So on Monday, the 15th of March, the government launched Bus Back Better, a national bus strategy for England outside of London. The National Bus Strategy places new requirements on the council to form statutory partnerships with local bus operators and develop a bus service improvement plan, or BSIP. The timescales to develop and deliver the council's first BSIP by the end of October 2021 and activate the enhanced partnership by April 2022 will be challenging, but we are confident we will meet them. The council has received 2 tranches of bus capacity grant funding to support the hiring of additional staff resources and contracting in consultancy support. An additional member of staff has already been recruited to the Dorset Travel Public Transport team, but further additional staff resources will be required to deliver the plan. The consultancy firm WSP has been contracted by the council to provide technical support. And as part of this work, WSP have been engaging with members, local stakeholders and the public to collect a wide range of thoughts and ideas which will help to shape the future vision and priorities of the bus network in Dorset. Next slide, please, Hayley. The first stage of the work has focused on creating a network baseline to understand the current state of the actual network we have. A large amount of data has been gathered and analysed to create a picture of the current network and then overlay this on top of the demographic data we hold to help identify any potential gaps. So some of the example outputs from the mapping work that we've completed are shown on the side of the slide to illustrate the types of different techniques that have been used. The bus operators are supporting the baseline work by providing data for their commercial and non-commercial operations. And this really demonstrates the operators' willingness to engage in this process and work constructively and in partnership with the council. So the BSIP is being developed in very close collaboration with members, local bus operators, local community groups, local business groups, passengers, and more widely, just the general public as a whole. Next slide, please, Hayley. So as part of our preparation for the BSIP, we've been gathering primary data through an online snap survey for the general public and then from detailed feedback from stakeholders. So 2 rounds of stakeholder engagement workshops have been held so far, with a 3rd round of sessions being prepared for the end of September. We have input from the bus users as well, so this is a very important part of the plan. In order to inform the BSIP, a bus survey was run during August to find out how local bus services can be improved and what would make people use buses more. Detailed meetings have also been held with the local bus operators, rail and coach service providers, community transport groups and Dorset Council planning. Next slide, please, Hayley. The survey highlighted a number of issues that stop people using the bus more or just to kind of reduce them using it at all. The main issues that have been identified were service frequency, services not going where individuals want to go, and the cost. And as this graph shows, what the public want to see delivered through the BSIP are improvements that make buses that run more often to more places and that start earlier in the morning or finish later in the evening. Next slide, please, Hayley. So we've reviewed and analysed all the written feedback from the stakeholders and the public, and we've received it via a range of media. We've had it from email, social media, written, postal and online survey. And this analysis shows the top 3 shared priorities are for additional bus routes, higher frequency services, enhanced weekend services and a cheaper, simplified fare structure. And whilst the top 3 identified by both the public and the stakeholders are actually the same, albeit in a slightly revised order, the 4th and 5th priorities differ. And so it's our intention to address all of these priorities through the BSIP, but with an emphasis on what the public have indicated as their top priorities. Next slide, please. So some common themes have emerged through the engagement activity. On fares, issues with the concessionary travel scheme have been highlighted, particularly the restrictions around use in the morning peak and the problems this can create for people trying to access health appointments. Users have issues with the various different tickets that exist and the lack of a kind of a single ticket product that would enable the public to travel on different operator services within Dorset. Accessibility and poor connections in rural areas in particular have been highlighted. Through the BSIP, opportunities to pilot new demand responsive type services that feed into the core bus network can be explored and will be. And working closely with the community transport sector, we will ensure that the service delivery is tailored to the local needs. Good conversations have been had so far with rail operators and other modes of transport about how the interchanges can be improved. And the idea of creating multimodal mobility hubs has been strongly suggested by stakeholders and will again be explored within the BSIP. There is some recognition that issues are not cheap to remedy and that it will take time to deliver all the changes that people want to see. We need to carefully balance being ambitious through the BSIP, but not raising expectations too high, as at this stage we have no idea of what level of funding may be made available by government to fund these improvements in Dorset. Next slide, please, Hayley. So the focus now, after it's been agreed today, is to focus on drafting the BSIP document and developing the future state network proposal. The council is required to submit a business case with high-level costings to the Department for Transport alongside the BSIP. So from October onwards, emphasis will shift to the creation of the enhanced partnership, which is the legal framework to deliver the BSIP. Although the current focus of the deadline set by government, this is a long-term plan that will require ongoing work to develop the BSIP beyond its submission and the creation of the enhanced partnership. The BSIP will be a live document and is required by the government to be refreshed annually. So it's going to be a very ongoing piece of work, which we'll keep updating and making sure it works best for Dorset. And that brings me to the end of the presentation and the update. If anyone has any questions or comments, I would gladly receive them.
Thank you very much, Nock. Good presentation, nice and clear. Obviously a topic that's going to become a greater emphasis as time goes by. I've got a question, you'll be pleased to know.
Excellent, I like questions.
Well, a couple of questions. You've got one from Paul Kimber, followed by one from Shane Bartlett. So, Paul.
Thank you, Spencer, and thank you, Nock, for your comprehensive report. As you know, I gave my concerns earlier on in the meetings, and I hopefully that will be addressed. I just would hopefully, and I possibly, I know you'll be doing this. Could you get this out to our parish councillors, this report, and if I can be sent a report as well to what possibly all councillors are wanted, because I've been asked by in many quarters in Dorset if I can have this report. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you for that, Paul. So on your comments earlier, I assume you're referring to the meeting up of bus times and railway times for when you're travelling back from meetings, and that absolutely is something that we've taken on board and are actively looking at and working and engaging with rail operators and bus operators on. As far as the report goes, all the parish councillors would have been invited to working groups. However, I'm sure we can absolutely send a report out to all councillors, including parishes and DAPTC. That would be absolutely fine.
Yeah, as I said, the parish councils are, if you like, the coalface of Dorset.
Yeah, we're doing that, Paul. Thank you. Good question. Shane Bartlett.
Thank you, Councillor Lacey-Clark. That was a really good and concise report. I've got a bit of a concern in the consultation process. You know, that's shortly coming to my scrutiny committee is how we consult within Dorset Council, and that was obviously during the period that we've been through with COVID, and it's been difficult, obviously, in contacting certain sections of the public. And into the early teens, because I think when bus service was withdrawn, we understood then that in rural communities we were going to end up with a situation where we had children and young adults that were going to be isolated in rural communities and not able to get into the hub towns, and the same was going to be true of the elderly and of the very elderly. And so my concern, as you can see where this is leading, is how do we manage to reach out to the elderly? Do you have an assurance within this report that we have managed to touch base with those elderly in those rural communities and they've been able to give their response into this? And also, another part of my question is, over the time frame of this of doing this project, is there going to be further consultation going forward, or is this just a one-off consultation period? Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you, Shane. I'll try to answer all your questions. If there's any that I missed, do remind me, and I'll do my best to answer.
We might both struggle with that.
Right. So starting from the end, we absolutely will be consulting again. We've only done 2 of the 3 consultation stages so far, and that is to then give the draft BSIP. So that is, we're doing 3 stages of consultation just to create the staff. This will be the draft BSIP. This will be something we regularly consult on again, and we'll be looking for continual feedback on. As for your question on the age groups and those in the rural areas, so we did have 60% under 65, which is excellent, but that means we had 40% over 65. So we definitely did reach a portion of the over 65 populace. And as one of the key themes that emerged from this is connecting those rural isolated areas into the hub towns, as that's come out, I can only assume from the consultation that they have been engaged because that has been highlighted as a priority. I haven't seen the exact demographic data of where they all came from, but that's something I can look into if you'd like me to, Shane.
Okay, thank you. Can I come back on something, please, Chairman?
Yeah, very briefly though, Shane, please.
Okay, thank you. It was surrounding the drive from government to get these bus services up and going, which obviously is all part of the climate change, and to get the members of the public to adapt to a different way of travel. And I know that at this point in time, we don't know how much money would be coming from this government. Do we have any indication of that so far? Will we have any indication of it in the short term? Because obviously we need to set our budgets for our own council and how we're going to accommodate this. Thank you.
Okay, so whilst the simple answer is just no to that, we have been asked to create a high-level costings for it, which we will be submitting. As far as actual amounts of money that we might be getting, I think Ray's in a much better position to be aware of anything like that, but I have not heard of any actual finite amounts yet.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. David Took.
Thank you, Spencer. I noted in Knock's report, he very carefully talked about single fares within Dorset, which is great. We're Dorset Council, so Dorset is our focus. But as I'm sure Knock knows, I live on the edges of Dorset, and from Alderholt, the natural place for people to look to travel to are going to be Fordingbridge, Ringwood, Bournemouth, Salisbury, rather than into Dorchester or into Weymouth. They're far too far away. So are we able to look at running this in conjunction with neighbouring authorities so that we can get a single fare? So if we had a bus, of course, that would work from Alderholt, we could get a ticket from Alderholt to Salisbury or to Bournemouth or to Poole. And therefore travel on perhaps several different suppliers. Is that part of the plans, or is that too difficult?
So, David, I can answer that pretty easily. We have one of our main stakeholder groups. We are working in conjunction with the key stakeholders surrounding us. So not just Dorset, that we are actively talking to them and in discussions with them. We have a lot of influence over creating a single ticket for Dorset. Or a ticketing system that works for our Dorset, and we have some influence over the other areas. We are absolutely working with them, and that is something we would like to see. However, it's not entirely in our control.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Knock.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, I've got no other questions. Can I? The number of Beryl's asked, and I know others have as well, about the presentation being available to councillors. You have answered that point. Just can note that and make sure that we do distribute it in the usual manner. Thank you very much, Knock, and thank you, Ray. Cabinet colleagues, anybody else wish to place an emphasis on any of items in their own updates this month? If not, I'll move on. Okay, right, the last item I've got on is panels and groups, and I'm going to invite Ray to give us an update on the Executive Advisory Panel on Climate and Ecological Emergency.
Thank you, Leader. A couple of fairly brief updates. First of all, I want to talk about the 19 million that we secured from central government to decarbonise our own properties. That is now well underway. Fantastic job being done by the team on this. You can't imagine the amount of work that is having to go into dealing with this in a very tight timescale. Procurement have worked very hard on securing supplies. The engineering side have worked very hard on the design. We're working with planning at the moment on areas where we need planning consent. All of this is going to pick up speed over the next few months. We have confirmation, or we've got provisional confirmation from Salex that although their timescale was the end of September, that is being extended. Again, so everybody knows, I meet with the project board every 2 weeks, as do my two lead members. and there's, as I say, fantastic work going on, and it's a major step towards decarbonising the Dorset Council sort of area by the earliest possible date. One other point I'd like to update members on is by the end of this month, we will have finished installing the first tranche of EV charging stations. Where possible, we're installing the rapid version, which obviously is the quickest way to charge your car. The only thing that causes a problem on that is the electricity supply, because obviously to charge a car very quickly, the electricity supply has to be pretty good, and we're struggling a bit on that. We're now entering tranche 2 of deciding sites going forward. I've got the provisional list that will be discussed with my colleagues over the next week or so, and then I hope to report back at the next cabinet meeting the details of tranche 2. But that's 2 major updates on the climate change. Hell of a lot of work going on behind the scenes, and as I say, we're getting as quick on target or improving our target of 2040 as soon as we can. I'm still hopeful that we will come in before 2040, just to put a few people's minds at rest. But I have said right from word go, I'm not willing to put a date in that I don't think is achievable, or achievable at a sensible level of cost. We have to take the 2 into account. So thank you for giving me the time to update people. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Ray. Right, everyone. Thank you very much for that. I've got a question for you, Ray, from Jill Taylor.
Thank you very much, Leader. It's just a very quick question for you, Ray. Recently, Dorset Council has been purchasing houses for our homelessness provision. I'm just wondering whether we're factoring in the work that will need to be done to bring those up, basically to decarbonise them. Most of them I would have thought would have been either a C or D EPC rating. But over the years, we may want to consider putting in heat source pumps and all that sort of thing to bring their EPC ratings up. And I just wondered whether there's any thought at the moment about decarbonising the ones that we're purchasing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Ray, is that something you'd like to take away?
Yes, please, and then I can send a written response to Jill and everybody else.
Don't do it on the hoof. It's better to take it away and get Jill, all of us actually. I think everyone would like to know what we plan to do with anything that we acquire in that, Ray.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Urgent items, there aren't any, and there's no exempt business. So at 11:12, I shall bring this meeting to a close. Thank you very much, everybody. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Have a